Hey guys, Jacob Graham here from Unix Soldier. Today I'm going to do a Apple Sucks 2. So this is why Apple sucks. And this time I'm going to go more into technical stuff and more into facts than just a bunch of quick facts that I was spitting out because I was very angry at the time with some things that were going on. So the number one reason that I think Apple sucks is the quality. Now what do I mean by the quality? Well, they use aluminum and stuff like that, and they use glass, and they use a lot of stuff that looks really nice. And, I'd like to think that it's because they want aesthetics, but it's really because they want it to break easier. They want it to bend. And some of the best designs are plastic. Because if we have a plastic design, when you drop your phone, it actually bounces. This is why it's a lot better. And even the electronics inside cell phones and inside laptops, it's different type of electronics than inside a motherboard of, say, a tower for an Apple. In a tower, they use normal capacitors, but in a laptop or cell phone, they use what's called surface mount technology. Okay, and that's a different type of resistor, different type of capacitor, different types of everything, and they're soldered on differently, and so that nothing sticks out the back. That's why they call it surface mount. And that's how they can use them to get into small form factors. The issue is that with things like Apple using SMT technology, surface mount technology, um, a lot of their capacitors are really crappy quality. And I have some really good examples that just recently happened. Um, Somebody was actually electrocuted picking up their cell phone. And if that doesn't, kind of help my point, I don't know what will. Um, but you'd have to be pretty wet to get out of a bathtub like she did, run over to her cell phone that was charging at the time, pick it up, and die. And I'll link it in the description so you guys can make your own opinions. But from my experience, Apple motherboards, whether they're in iMacs or they're in MacBook Airs or they're the A5 chip that's in the iPhones and stuff like that, it's really crappy quality and it's hit and miss, right? And it's made by Foxconn, as 50% of the world's hardware is. Even Samsung uses Foxconn. But not everything comes from Foxconn like it does with Apple. And Apple has just recently started to grab new stuff. Like I heard they started using Gorilla Glass again, which is awesome. But Apple's always been a company that does really poor quality and just kind of, it's like anything. Like I've done a lot of different things in my life and in my short life, and one of the things I've seen is that there's a lot of people out there who try to make things sound like they're more expensive and sell things for the top dollar and just make it sound better. You see that in roofing where I've worked. You see that in commercial stuff. Especially not just with Apple, but you see it with Bose speakers. You see it with, and Bose is pretty good. And you see it again with Beats by Dre. It's this idea that we have to pay all this money. Like I don't use Photoshop. I use GIMP, and GIMP has just the same abilities as Photoshop. The only difference is you have to load in packages with GIMP, but then you don't have to pay all the money for it. So I actually have Photoshop, but I don't use it. Um, so yeah, that's one of my main reasons that I really have a problem with Apple. And another reason is just their business ethics. I mean, some of their people that they have working for them at Foxconn, um, they commit suicide after 35-hour work shifts and stuff like that. And I mean, some of those people that I'm mentioning, like the one that I'm actually thinking of that committed suicide after a 35-hour work shift, he was, I believe, 12 or 13 years old. So there's some serious issues going on with China's labor laws too. But at the same time, companies like Coca-Cola and Apple and stuff like that, they'll exploit much as they can in countries. A good example, foreign countries that is. A good example would be like my friend, he went, I can't remember what he was drinking, but he was drinking like root beer or something like that. And he went down to a southern country and he said that he couldn't stop drinking the root beer because he was sure that they had put something in it. And when I had looked into it, it turns out to be quite true that big corporations will do stuff like that in countries where they can get away, and the Food and the Drug Act is a little bit different. But I digress on that part. But I really think Apple is still inferior quality. The new MacBooks have soldered in RAM, and they try to claim that it's for aero design. But I've been fixing laptops as the lead technician for my own IT service. That's a licensed business for over 5 years, and I'm really good at laptops. Not everybody is. Even people who have more experience than me sometimes can't take apart laptops. It's kind of an art because you really have to be careful, of course. And it's really easy even for seasoned veterans in tech to break laptops. You'll often see programmers or other techs come in with their laptops just because they don't do that kind of work. So, I've been doing work with laptops for a long time. I know a lot about cooling, especially because a lot of the problems that you have with Windows PCs is overheating. And beyond just to clean out, you usually need to re-thermal paste them, and sometimes even put a nicer heatsink in or make your own. And I've done that lots of times. And it really bothers the hell out of me when I hear Apple claim that the reason that they soldered RAM in, and people believe this stuff, the reason they solder RAM in is because it has something to do with airflow. That's complete nonsense. That doesn't really make any sense. I mean, one of the biggest jokes that has ever been made in the tech industry is water cooling RAM or putting heat spreaders over top of RAM. They're just kind of there for show. Your RAM doesn't really get that hot. And if it is really getting that hot, you've got some other issues. You need to put way better cooling in the system because the rest of the system is getting way too hot for the RAM to be affected. And so I bring you back to why that would be a piece of junk argument that they're just trying to throw in there, that it's for a reason. They're soldering in the RAM guys because they don't want you guys to be able to upgrade it. They want you to buy a new Mac. Simple as that. If you really think that they want you to have better heat control inside the laptop, you really, really need to get your head checked, because obviously it's because they want you to upgrade to a new Mac. And the other big thing I hate Macs is if you ever actually look at what OS X updates are, usually, I mean, there's some exceptions, they're service packs. So Windows gets service packs for free once they bought it, and Linux has always been free. And here's Mac over there where they actually charge you for the service update and service pack update and a couple wallpapers. So, and this isn't BS. This is true. I was an Apple technician for 5 years, and I sold Apple products too. I also fixed them. I also did some of the hardest stuff that nobody else in my city did, such as doing like iPads, and some of the newer iPads you needed a heat gun because the screen was glued on instead of using actual springs. Excuse me, but I just find it really silly that people actually buy into this stuff, because all Mac is a Unix based operating system, and it doesn't mean it's Unix. There's a big difference, even though they've been certified Unix. That's not what that means. I heard someone say that, and any Unix guy will explain it to you really well. And the thing is with that is they might have that seal because they paid whatever it was to get into there. But the truth of the matter is that even though they're built along a lot of stuff that Unix has used, it's not Unix. Unix is a proprietary operating system created in Bell Labs in the 60s, and it was created by Ken Thompson and Mr. Ritchie, Dennis Ritchie. Dennis Ritchie created the Unix, or created C, and Ken Thomas created Unix. Linux is a kernel. First of all, it's not an operating system. Unix had its own kernel. Unix is an operating system. Linux is an operating system with a bunch of packages that are GNU. That's why Richard Stallman always argues that Linux is more GNU than Linux, because it truly is. But we'll still be calling Linux Linux. So Linux is actually an operating system. Just like in Windows, there's the NTOS kernel. And NT stands for New Technology, and OS stands for Operating System, and kernel is a kernel. Kernel is the thing that handles everything from one thing to the other and calculates everything behind the scenes. So, yeah, there's a lot to be said there. And so when you buy a Mac too, you often get a computer that they have great support, Apple, and OS X is a great operating system because, of course, it's based on Nix. And Nix means Linux or Unix, either or, right? Um, but it, to me, is clearly a different reason for them to be doing all this kind of stuff. And there's no reason that a dual core or quad core system should cost you $2 or $3 grand. Anyway, that's it. Thanks. Unix Soldier out.